issued by the Governor, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and the Washtenaw County Health Department. We intend to conduct this meeting similarly to an in-person meeting. However, please be patient if there are technical issues. Public comment will be via telephone only. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, please call toll-free 877-853-5247 or 888-788-0099 and enter meeting ID 949-7173-0458. This information is also available on the published agenda, in the public notices section of the city website, and on the broadcast of this meeting on CTN Channel 16, AT&T Channel 99, and online at www.a2gov.org/watchctn. Let's see. So a couple of announcements before we move on further in the agenda. Colin is out this week, so Scott Spooner is here filling in for Colin. So Scott, thanks for being here today to fill Colin's shoes and answer all of our questions. And then just a note about myself, I have kids who need to be in 2 different places in a little bit. So I'm going to run the first part of this meeting, and then a little before 4:30, I'm going to hop off and Lauren's going to take over for me. So thanks, Lauren, in advance.
Of course.
Scott, could you please call the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Morrison.
Here.
Commissioner London.
Here.
Commissioner Ramaswamy.
Here.
Commissioner Borgsdorf. Commissioner Kraut. Commissioner Skyless.
Here.
Commissioner Marson.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Apple.
Here.
Councilmember Hayner. Councilmember Grand.
Here.
And you have a quorum.
Thank you, Scott. Moving on to the approval of the agenda. It was included in your packet. Are there any additions or amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, we will move on to our first public comment period. Any speakers who are calling in have 3 minutes to speak. So Kristen, do we have any callers right now?
No callers.
No caller. Okay, thank you. Just so everyone knows, there will be a second public comment period at the end of the meeting. Moving on to the approval of the minutes. In your packet are attached the minutes from our February 23rd, 2021 PAC meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Lauren, seconded by Mike. Any discussion regarding the minutes? All in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you. Moving on to presentations. So I see we have Derek Delacourt, who just signed on. So Derek is joining us to present the DTE Broadway site potential grant application. Welcome, Derek.
Good afternoon. How is everybody? Sorry, I came straight from something else, so I will get cut up.
That's your timing is perfect. So
good. Calling this a presentation is a strong word. I don't have much, but we did want to update PAC on some conversations that have been taking place and discussions between staff, the developer, the DTE site, the DNR, about what may be a DNR acquisition grant. I know PAC has done several development grants with the DNR, and it's same program but different pot of money. And this would be for consideration of an easement acquisition or potentially a fee simple title acquisition of a portion of the DTE site that is being built in compliance with the open space and requirements of the site plan and PD agreement that has been put in place by the city. Major components of it consist of about 1,500 feet of linear path that acts as a quasi connection to the B2B, a bridge component from the site to the Argo pond, and some other amenities that are included in the plan for development by the Roxbury Group, who is, I think most of everybody is familiar with at this point, as the developer of the site. They approached Colin and I with a discussion about potentially using these funds to, the requirement is the city would have to be the applicant for the grant. It's a conversation that's taking place between all three parties. The majority of these improvements and facilities currently are being reimbursed through the city's brownfield program, the TIF, which is, a portion of local jurisdictions, general fund funds, and then other taxing jurisdictions. The conversations we've had is the potential for the grant funds to replace our TIF, either all or a portion of our TIF obligation for reimbursement on this site, which would lessen the impact to the general fund and the other taxing jurisdictions, and fits within the approval authority of the DNR. They feel like it's a good use of their acquisition funds, at least on surface. The reason for the conversation is we have not made a conclusion or come to a recommendation as staff on whether the city should or should not accept these grant funds, but it is time to make a determination on whether we should at least submit the application, which does require a concurring resolution from the city council, which we don't do without running that resolution through PAC first. We are reviewing a draft grant application, which we've asked the development group to put together on our behalf, thus saving us staff time and effort putting it together. It can't be submitted unless it is approved and we put our name on it as an administration function from staff. So we are reviewing that right now. And we anticipate, if we're satisfied with that application, we would come forward with a resolution for PAC's consideration in April. Then that resolution would go forward to council for consideration. The real benefit to the city here is the fact that most, or if not all of this that we are discussing is currently something that is being reimbursed through taxing jurisdictions. So you can understand there would be value in having this conversation with council if council is desirous that the grant funds would replace that reimbursement requirement from the city. So that is why we were here. The DNR seems to be positive so far in our conversations with them about the grant. And we are going to review an application and anticipate that resolution being in front of PAC at their April meeting. So I think I will leave it at that for the presentation. I'd gladly answer any questions anybody has at this point.
Thanks, Derek. It looks like Pravina has her hand raised.
Yep.
Thanks, Derek, for your presentation. My question is, I'm just trying to visualize based on, I remember when the original presentation was made of the park, and I remember them talking about it being after they've built the space and the apartments and everything is all done, that it would be run by a friends of the organization or a separate board.
Mm-hmm.
So considering that, is there going to be then a portion of the land and access to that land that will be city run or parks run, and the remaining will be part of this board? What is the thought behind how this relationship would work, say 5 years from now?
Yep, that's a great question. We are willing to consider the application for the acquisition of a portion of this. One of the requirements we've stated is that we expect the conservancy will still be stood up. And that's a proposal. It's a conservancy similar to other open space conservancies you've seen in the area or the region. And that conservancy will still be responsible for the long-term operation and maintenance of these facilities. Even if the city, if a portion of them are under an acquisition or an easement or a fee simple title type acquisition, that the conservancy through an operation and O&M agreement will still be responsible not only for everything that's not in that easement or that acquisition, but the portion of improvements that are within this as well. We've made it clear that we don't expect that burden be shifted to the city's park system, that we may be willing to consider ownership in some form as a relief valve to the pressure on the general fund, And certainly because it does give us a larger stake in control of the actual river frontage, which is what this would be. But that the Conservancy still is required to hold on to operation and maintenance long term. That's a great question. I should have had that in my presentation, but it wasn't as thorough as it should have been.
That's what happens when you're unpacked for so long.
It's a great, yeah. O&M, it's what we preach and bang the table about everywhere. So, yeah, it's buying it is easy. It's the long term, as you guys all know, it's the long term maintenance and operation of it that is the difficult part.
Mhm. Julie.
So, oh, thanks. So is this more of a, would it also fund some of the capital, or is it just the land?
It's both.
Okay, so that's, yeah, I just wanted to be.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you think it might replace the entire TIF?
Not the entire TIF, but
Yeah.
and that is something we would have to look at. There are portions of the TIF that are environmental mitigation and remediation that this would have no impact on.
Right.
Whether or not this would come back and be a dollar for dollar replacement for the TIF that covers this portion of the capital construction, the bridge, the pathway, some of the other stuff that's reimbursable as public infrastructure, we haven't got that far, truthfully, and would anticipate that would have to be determined by council before any acceptance of the funds. Council would have to agree that there was a great enough lessening of the general fund burden through grant acquisition and payment that they would consider making that switch.
Right, because they've already agreed to do all this capital.
Correct. Oh yeah, it's required to be done one way or the other.
Part of the site plan. So
correct.
So I think we just need to I would like to understand sort of what can we put a number on it? Maybe like what that would be. I don't mean today. I mean,
yeah, no,
you know,
we definitely expect there would be a number on it before the final decision. Because of the time frame for the grant, as staff, what we're recommending now is there's enough potential to recommend asking the question and having the conversation, which means submitting the grant application.
Yeah,
but we have
some of this. You know, we want to start getting taxes into the general fund from these properties.
Correct. Yeah.
As that benefits the parks too.
Yeah, we are not recommending at this point, and we double checked with the DNR to make sure there was no negative impact to future grant applications or other considerations if at some point we withdraw this request, because we haven't gotten that far and the DNR understands that. What we are saying at this point is we think there's enough potential that we're recommending asking the question, which means submitting the grant application and continuing these conversations with City Council. Because if we don't submit it the grant has to go in early April, and we've actually gotten an extension on the resolution from the DNR. Normally that would have to be submitted at the same time. So that has to go in, but I think this determination that Ms. Grand is talking about, which is what is the dollar for dollar reduction in the TIF? Is it actually dollar for dollar? Is it a percentage? And is it worth shifting that? Is it worth shifting the grant money out of the TIF for the benefit to the general fund? And we don't have the dollar numbers right now to know that.
Yeah, because it has to be a win-win, and I think we just have to be sensitive to the optics of subsidy.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it either has to be a reduction. Yeah, what we've talked about, it either has to be a reduction in the general fund obligation in reimbursement, which is a benefit to City Council, and a question, we feel like City Council should have the ability to discuss, or if we shift some of the TIP obligation to grant funding, what else can be done with that TIF? Is there a benefit and other things that could be done from a park standpoint, either on this property or otherwise, that could then be reimbursed, that would act as an offset for accepting the grant funds?
Okay.
So,
I mean, it could even be setting up like a long-term maintenance fund or who knows? Okay.
Yeah, we would
it's the capital improvements that's helpful too. I think that's a win. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Who wants to speak?
Anne.
Actually, I think you answered my questions with Julie, answering Julie's questions, because I just not having the background on this property. I was trying to figure out what the trade-off here was,
Mhm.
but I think it's been answered, I guess.
Great. Any other questions for Derek?
I have one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a thought of a plan B if this grant does not go through and you think that this would just be run by the Conservancy? Has there been thoughts of how the parks would be operating the liveries connection, especially?
Well, everything that is being considered as part of the grant application is something the developer is required to build regardless of whether this grant is either submitted, awarded, or accepted. So from an operational standpoint and a capital improvements standpoint, all of these things are required to be constructed regardless. Now, is the developer going to come back and say, well, if we don't get the grant, we can't? I don't know. I'm not worried about that. That's for discussion at a later date. But from an operations standpoint, we expect to get the full benefit of the capital improvements, whether or not this grant is awarded, whether or not it's even submitted, unless the project is not constructed. And then that is the only way they wouldn't come to fruition.
Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully that answers. I think I got. Hopefully that answers the question.
Any other questions or thoughts? All right, so I guess, Derek, can you just reiterate what the timing is and then what the next steps are in terms of tax involvement?
Yeah, and I appreciate it. I know if Colin was here, he probably would have got a much better presentation. The next steps are we are drafting a resolution that we don't want to bring to PAC until we are comfortable with the full grant application. We're reviewing that currently. If we're comfortable with that, we'll draft the resolution that ultimately is a council resolution, but similar to other grants that deal with parks, we want PAC to see it, comment on it, recommend any changes, or make a recommendation to council whether they should move forward. We expect that to come forward at their April meeting. As administrative function, as a placeholder, we will submit, most likely, if we are comfortable with it, the application to the DNR on the 1st. That will sit as a placeholder. If council and PAC agree and the resolution is passed, it will then be added to that application and the DNR will begin to review it. My understanding of the next steps after that is they get back to us with some initial scoring and then maybe some recommended changes. And then that is the point. It's really somewhere between April and December that they get back to us and tell us whether the grant seems to have traction, whether it has merit. And that's also the window for us to say, you know what, we've taken another look at this. We've looked at the TIF, we've looked at other things. We would prefer to just withdraw it at this point and not have it be considered for move forward for further consideration. So those are the steps going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Glad to be here. Anything else?
Anything else from anyone? Yes, Jeff.
Just real quick, Derek, how's the project coming along over there? Where are they at with that?
They've moved forward with remediation. All the plans are in I believe all the final version of the plans are in the building department for above ground construction. So they're moving. I think like any project of this size, they get their entitlements, they get their public approvals, they get the front end, and now I would imagine they're working on financing and other things to start to bring the above ground construction in line. But,
all right. Yeah, I mean, I go by there every day.
It is moving.
So,
yeah. They haven't disappeared yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. From every indication, they are still moving forward and still working on the permitting process. I haven't gotten any indication that they've backed off of it yet.
All right. Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, thanks for the presentation, Derek, and for entertaining all of our questions.
You're welcome. It was nice to see everybody again, and we'll be back in April with more details for sure at that point.
All right. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next presentation, we have Cheryl Sum joining us to talk about an update on the Huron River Day and the Argo and Gallup operations for 2021. Hi, Cheryl.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'll share my screen here. Okay, so I'm going to go fast through all the Canoe Delivery stuff, and you're certainly welcome to ask questions at the end. But basically, we're the largest delivery in the state, 550 boats, lots of people, busy operation. It's a very urban area that's accessible to a lot of people. Gallup offers the 5.7-mile river trip, and Stillwater and Gallup Pond has camps programs. It's a popular park, as you know. And then Argo offers the 3.7-mile Argo to Gallup river trip, and Stillwater paddling, tube rentals, camps, and concessions. River trips are a little over half of our boat rentals, and the shorter Argo to Gallup is the most popular by far. And Stillwater paddles are great because it's good for beginners. It's lower cost. It's easier for staff. We're not putting people in vans, loading trailers. And we're able to do Stillwater paddling even if the river is high water, such as in the spring frequently. Tube rentals are a really small percent. There's an increase of popularity of tubes in rivers everywhere across the nation, and it causes increased crowds in our river parks as well. We did not rent tubes last year for COVID reasons to try to keep the crowds down, and we'll start this year the same without renting tubes. River festivals, we have lots and lots of different kinds of festivals. The new ones this year are adapted kayaking and kayaking for seniors, both of those. It's a great way to discover the river, learn new skills. And with adapted kayaking, it's just many types of disabilities. You can paddle a river, paddle in a boat, and it's a safe and fun way to discover kayaking and make new friends. So we're excited this year for Huron River Day. So it's a festival that we've been running for over 40 years. Typical activities are cheap boat rentals and river exhibits, educational programs, but we canceled it last year due to the pandemic. This year, we needed to rethink how to run a river day. So this year, we're going to have educational signs up in the 12 river parks between Dexter and Ypsilanti, and each part of the signs will have an educational component, trails, water trails or hiking trails, and an enviro challenge activity as well. So some of the topics are like, this one is water safety, wear your life jacket, that sort of thing. And we have stormwater, climate change, dams, animals, wetlands. And then as part of the signs is a QR code that puts you back into a landing page to learn about where the other signs and to learn all about the river and and all of those different topics. As part of this, there's going to be prizes given out. We're thinking daily throughout May or weekly. So really great prizes such as boat rentals and gift certificates at local businesses. And so it's just a different way for people to come down, enjoy the river, learn more about the river, and expand our activities. River Day camps, we talked a little bit about those last meeting on the pandemic changes. So the camps, we had registration yesterday, and all of our camps filled within minutes, if not the first day, including the Burr camp. So they're have proven to be very popular even with the pandemic. I think with our outdoor activities, it still continues to attract the public, and they've always been very popular. So we're having a smaller capacity at Gallup, and we're just changing lots of the operational details to keep those kids 6 feet apart, equipment clean. We're really looking forward to running camps again this year. We have groups that come throughout, not with the pandemic so much, it was a big hit on the operation there, but many, many groups come paddling. It's a perfect experience, adventure and team building. So delivery operations with COVID. So last year, we had many policies and procedures, and they worked. As you may be aware, we had a number of different staff that came down with COVID that they got outside of work. Usually in some sort of social gathering, and worked while they had COVID and didn't realize it. But these policies and procedures, it worked. We stopped the spread. Nobody else got sick. among our staff, and as far as we know, among the public as well. So we do, and we're going to start with the same operations as last year, with being very restrictive, reservations only, to really keep down the crowds, spread out the crowds, extensive staff training, face masks, physical distancing requiring. Last year we got self-launching docks, which are super fun and will be great again because we can just put the boats in them and we can always use those, and people, it's very stable and a way to glide into the water. We're limiting van transports to just one group at a time, and limiting public programs such as our night paddles you can't do. So last year we ran at about 32% capacity. Maybe this year, we'll be able to open as time more as time goes on. Like not have reservations for still water paddles, for example, and just keep that for the van rides because that is very much a limiting factor of physical distancing. So we'll see how the year goes, but we're certainly going to start very similar to last year. So we usually have 100, 120 seasonals. It takes a lot of staff to manage deliveries, run deliveries. Each person needs help and each boat needs to be lifted, and our staff have to be awesome. Customer service, risk management, knowledgeable about the program. And we have really excellent staff and really spend a lot of time and energy making sure the staff are doing the right thing and enjoying their job and interacting well with the customers. So managing river parks, we're managing the facilities. We're really excited about the Argo grant. This fall is the construction estimate that we will start, and most of it is for ADA improvements. I'm sure you remember, heard all about it. But it'll really do some much needed improvements, restrooms, docks, pathways, parking lot, everything. As part of that, we're always improving our buildings and docks, equipment. Risk management is important. We've got to make sure this is safe as possible, putting all these people on the river and have the best equipment and really understand like the river flow. We look at what that flow is every day to match people in boats and know when to close it, that we can't offer our river trips, for example. And as part of that is the safety of the people in our parks and the experience that everyone has. So we've already met with the City of Ann Arbor Police to really make communicate and a concerted together approach to managing our river parks. And as part of that, we're going to continue our Park Ambassador program, which we started last year. And so the Park Ambassadors are my staff out there, and they're really just helping mobile crew day to day, ensuring that parks remain welcoming for passive and recreational use, and really work to resolving conflicts between patrons. So we're monitoring for safety, positive communications with the citizens, and basic tasks such as picking up trash every day. But the park ambassadors themselves will be out there on busy weekends, be working with the police. We'll still continue to have police in our parks as well, both at Argo and at Gallup. And really, we're just continually looking for ways to improve the family-friendly and enjoyable experience for our customers, the public, and our neighbors. So, the same as last year, but we keep trying to improve, and really make sure that we have a presence out there and are doing a good job of interacting with the customers. We have many rules everywhere throughout the parks. And for example, we don't allow alcohol, of course, with our boats, and we limit our cooler size to 12 by 12 by 12. And staff are always working with and communicating with the public that we see go by as well. So why is river recreation so popular in Ann Arbor? It's just so many reasons. And we have just a beautiful river here in the city, and it's the perfect summer activity to do with your friends and family. And we have a really incredible park system on the river. Yeah, so that's it for me, but we certainly can answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Does anybody have any questions for Cheryl? As you see, Paige made her getaway here. Any questions? Jeff.
Thanks. I get one question repeatedly because, most of your stuff's right here in Ward 1. And there's a general public concern about the bottles in the river and that kind of thing, not
Yeah.
just the drinking going down the river, but actually finding bottles. So like my kids and I go down there and take bottles out of the river and
Thank you.
yeah. Well, I mean, is there anything that we can pass on to our public services or our police or any way that we can help you guys with that situation down there? What can we do on council or as a community that surrounds the river to help out with that, which seems to be kind of an unstoppable problem, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any suggestions? Do you have any ideas of some? I know we've worked with signage. I thought the park ambassador program would help, just we're out there and it's kind of my young staff. So it's a little peers like, hey guys, that's not cool. You can't have glass bottles.
Have you found that it's helped? Do you
We
feel like
did
it's
very
helped?
little of it. We just kind of
Okay.
started and dabbled in it last year, and we're really going to develop that further. I hope so. Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I know people have asked about cleanup days and things like that. And I don't know if that's something that, maybe we
Yeah.
needed to organize another cleanup day or something down there, just targeted to your areas,
Yeah, yeah. And so we are going to try to develop that more this year as well. Give 365 is having like these trash, Scott, you may know more about it too, like, different programs of trash cleanups. And we put out all of the equipment for the public to use right out there on that Argo porch too. Yeah. And it's important that we keep this clean, the river clean. It just makes that so other people will love and protect the river as well. We just got to keep it that way always. Yeah, and the more we can do to organize river cleanups, I love that idea. Maybe we could get the neighbors involved. The Give 365, the Huron River Watershed Council and ourselves get a state grant each year to do river cleanups with groups. And so those are usually down the whole river or in Gallup or Argo Pond itself, and done maybe twice a month sort of thing throughout, but always my staff are out there in the Cascades particularly and at Gallup at the where they all get out, the people in tubes and boats and stuff get out to pick up trash.
Thanks, Cheryl. Pravina, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Well, one, I just want to go back to Jeff's point. I've also done cleanups through Give 365, and I was shocked to see how much trash our group picked up in one day. And I think maybe having more trash receptacles and maybe even a social media or some kind of visual to show what's in that river. We were shocked to see what we pulled out just in our 40 minutes on the river, and it was sad and scary. And I think if patrons coming to the river saw what their impact is and how much that piles up, that visual is very different from their one bottle that they toss out of their boat. When multiple people do that, what does that do to the river? So maybe it is an opportunity to educate, and sometimes you need a visual for that. Maybe we just have a big clear trash can and you can just have a whole year to fill it up. So my question is one, I really appreciate your presentation. For the Everyday River Day, how is that being communicated to our community, and how can people sign up for this? And can you do it multiple times? I just want to know more about this because I think it's really great. And then I guess one other part of the question is you had mentioned that you have to register now or sign up in advance for boats because of the limits. Will that be part of this program? Sorry, I gave you a lot.
Yeah, no, that's great. So we'll start with the trash receptacles. Like, what can we do to just make it like more inviting and look better? And we've really talked both with landscape architects Hillary and Scott and stuff. I'm just trying to figure this out for Argo and make it and Gallup as well. What can we, to just really improve the image and the presence and the importance of it. And I think social media could be part of that too, and signage. And then with Huron River Day, your question was signing up or prizes and things like that. So it's all going to be social media, basically. It's Gallup Delivery. So Kim does such an excellent job of just getting all of that out. We're also looking at an observer ad, for example, to try to get some print media too. But much of it will be through social media and our web pages. And for boat reservations, that's completely separate for Huron River Day. That'll just be every day, all the time through our civic reservation system.
Okay, thank you.
Ruth, did you have a question?
Yeah, not really a question. I just want to say that to me, the livery work is like a shining jewel in the city park system, and probably one of the number one ways, aside from numerous playgrounds, that people come into contact with parks. I just want to thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Ruth. Yeah,
Here, here.
it's a joy to get all these people outside. It's really incredible.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Cheryl. Does anybody else have any other questions or thoughts before we let Cheryl go? Mike?
Oh, I was just going to add on to Ruth's thoughts. So for those of you that are newer to PAC, you also don't quite get the scope of how this has grown over the years and how flexible staff has been to try to solve some of these problems as they've come up, which are the inevitable result of success. So yeah, kudos to you, Cheryl, for being able to do that.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Cheryl.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right. So we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is reports from staff. So report from the Parks and Recreations Manager. Is that you, Scott, today?
That's me today.
All right.
So just a couple things. Golf has started to open up. Huron Hills opened up last Friday, and Leslie Park is targeting the 24th, which is a Wednesday, for their opening day. So those are opening up. With the warmer weather, unfortunately, means Buer Outdoor Ice Rink is open for now. We were originally scheduled to close on the 29th of March, but with the long-term forecast, it looks like this Sunday will be the last day. Any groups that have rented Buer are going to be shifted over to Vets. Veterans Ice Rink is going to remain open until the 23rd for now. That's the anticipated closing date. And also Natural Area Preservation has started their spring burn season. They've already done 3 burns this season: Scarlet Mitchell, Cedar Bend, and Stapp Nature Areas. And Cheryl talked a little bit about the camps. As of this morning, the river camps are 100% filled. Buer was 99% filled, and golf camps were 72% filled, with a large number of people on the wait list. The river camps have 378 spots and 685 people on the wait list. Just to give you a little idea of how popular those are. Those opened up on Sunday. None of the weeks have had any of these scholarships added yet. We have withheld 10% of the spots in the camps open for scholarship families, and we're working to determine how we are going to fill those scholarships at the moment. So outdoor park shelter rentals are going to start back up on April 1st, and the most recent order from the state allows for groups up to 300 people outside. So we think that shelters and park space rentals will be pretty popular this season. Renters are going to have to comply with all social distancing guidelines in place at the time of the rental. And indoor rentals for groups up to 25 people are allowed, but there's going to be a lot of restrictions on those. So things like birthday parties might not be possible. So we're pushing people to rent outside and limiting our indoor rentals unless the groups have a leader or instructor that can kind of control the spacing between the people a little bit more than like a group of very young people. And last, I don't know if anybody's heard, this is the year that the 17-year cicadas are supposed to come out. So the last time that they cycled through, there was a small emergence northeast of Ann Arbor, I think in Cherry Hill Nature Area, which is outside the city of Ann Arbor. Talking with people from the state, and we're not anticipating that there's going to be an overwhelming amount of cicadas in the Ann Arbor area, but there might be. We're not 100% sure. So I imagine you'll hear it on the news about brood. It's called Brood X is the group and population that is in this area, and it's just a fun name to say. So I'm sure you'll hear about Brood X. When the adults do emerge, they don't really eat anything. They're just looking to mate and lay their eggs. So there's nothing you can really do. They're more of a nuisance at that point than any real hindrance to anything. Although they do tend to lay their eggs in trees, and especially on small branches of trees. And some very small trees may die from this. So in light of that, the city has stopped all planting of trees in parks and right-of-ways until the fall. So just as a preventative.
Are these the ones that sing, like they make a noise?
Yes.
Okay.
Apparently they can be pretty loud if you're in an area with a lot of them, because there can, if they do emerge in your area, there can be quite a lot, and they all tend to come out within 3 or 4 days. So you can have thousands of them, and hopefully we don't see that here. But
well, it sounds interesting. Thanks very much for that, Scott. Any other reports? We have a report from the Recreation Advisory Commission this time, or no?
Yes.
All right.
So we met last week. Our last meeting for this school year is going to be in May. But I just wanted to read off some numbers. I thought this was pretty impressive. Obviously, Rec and Ed had to pivot like everyone else with the pandemic, and they offered pre-K through 8 classes in September and October. Those were the fall classes. And between online and in person, they had 2,730 participants, which I think is really awesome, considering that there was so much pandemic going on. During the 3-week session called Fall 2 in November, December, there were 918 students who participated. And then in winter, January, February, 1,217 pre-K through 8th graders participated. So that's, I think, pretty cool. We've been virtual, we're going back now, but so I think that's pretty significant that school children did get interaction, which is awesome. The good news is there are going to be in-person camps, and with some limits. I'm not sure what the numbers are, but there are going to be caps on how many kids can sign up for that. The spring and summer sessions are happening now. Summer, they're going to add camp information. It's going to be added to the website during the week of spring break, which is not next week, but the week after. So that'll be, and that's, I never remember the exact, it's aarecedonline.com. Individual classes start March 22nd. You can register now. They have adult fun. There's like couple French classes. There's cinema club, photography, some farming classes, all virtual. Right now, I think the only adult enrichment in-person classes are small groups for civic chorus. But yeah, so you can go on now and register, and that's all starts March 22nd. So good news is in-person camps with restrictions with a cap. So.
Sounds good. Any questions for Patty? All right. Any other reports from relevant commissions or committees or boards? Mike.
Yeah, I just wanted to let the rest of you know, particularly those of you that are new, is I will be leaving here in May, will be my last meeting. And that will leave an opening for the representative to the Environmental Commission. So just planting that little seed for any one of you who might be interested in doing that. It gives you yet another window into all the fascinating things that city staff thinks about and does. So it's a fun front row seat. It's nice to be able to speak up for parks to people who are also trying to do the right thing many times and maybe not thinking about the impacts that it might have on parks or the park users or the park budget. So yeah, it's a fun position, and I would encourage any of you to reach out to me if you'd like to ask me more about it, and I can tell you what's happening. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. We're really going to miss you on this committee, on this commission.
Yeah.
Better to quit while you're ahead sometimes than to, drag it out. I'll be back. I can't not engage in what happens in the community where I live. So you'll see me around. Don't worry.
Absolutely. So please reach out to Mike if you're interested in learning more about that position. Next, we're moving on to commission proposed business. We have a resolution to recommend approval of a contract with E.T. Mckenzie Company to renovate the border-to-border pathway between Gallup Park, the Vehicle Bridge, and Mitchell Field, the Mitchell Field Bridge. I see that Hillary and Adam are here. Are you here for that purpose? I hope so.
I am here to present on that
Awesome.
purpose. So yes. Let me share my screen real quick here. Let me know if you can see it. Is that coming through? Okay. So let me start at the beginning here. So I just have a quick presentation, but stop me along the way if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them or try to. So the project I'm talking to you today about is to do path improvements along the stretch of the border-to-border between the Gallup Vehicle Bridge and the Mitchell Field Pedestrian Bridge. This is a segment of the border-to-border that's about a mile long, and not to be confused with the last time I think I was here, I presented on the Gallup path improvements by the boat launch. That's over here, and that's actually starting up soon, within the next week or two. So we're kind of excited for that one to be coming on. But one thing I do want to call your attention to before we get too far is the access for construction to this site is a little more challenging than normal. Contractors cannot use the Mitchell Field Pedestrian Bridge. We just had renovations done last year to that, and it doesn't have load capacity for any equipment. And then all contractors are going to have to use our vehicular bridge at Gallup Park, which has a 33-ton limit, which is less than a standard bridge that would be built today. So just kind of keep that in mind, and we'll touch on it in a little bit while we go through here. So the background of this project, and I just talked on it, is this whole stretch has deteriorated over time. As you all know, it's very heavily used and populated, and sometimes it can get congested. And as evidence, there are usually cow paths, as you can see here, on either side of the path. Especially during this COVID times, people want separation, and so you can really see that out here on this project. And then all of the site furnishings in this stretch have really reached the end of their life. So that's something that we're going to look to replace. So our plan is to widen the path from its current 8-foot width to 10-foot width, which conforms with national shared use path standards. It's also what's been used at Riverside Park and some of the other border-to-border projects here in the county. You can see these two images here are from Riverside, which we completed 2 years ago. And this is from a new stretch that the county has just done at Dexter here on Metro Park. One other element I want to touch on here is with the site furnishings and accessibility. So none of the furnishings along this stretch are accessible to all users. Especially in this section, we have some kind of strange situations where there's not routes to the benches where there's concrete pads. So someone in a wheelchair might not be able to access these beautiful views of the river. And that's something we really want to address in this next step. One way of doing that, so I'm gonna flip back real quick, this area right here, what we're proposing to do, and this is in plan view, is provide a concrete sidewalk and a nice kind of arching effect here that connects to the main border-to-border trail. and then put the benches along that path with companion ADA seating next to it. So I think in the end, it's going to be a really nice space that everyone can enjoy. One other element that we're kind of having a change in direction from our normal asphalt shared use paths is we are considering and recommending concrete as a material for this stretch. I just want to talk about the differences a little bit, but we did bid out this project as both asphalt and concrete, and I can get into those numbers on this next slide. But just to touch base on it, asphalt has an anticipated lifespan of 15 to 20 years, and concrete has 30 to 40 years. With that, concrete tends to have a higher installation cost compared to asphalt. So we usually go with asphalt in here. But with the anticipated lifespan and then just the difficult access for contractors in this zone, we really feel that concrete's going to hold up. It's more durable. It's just got a longer lifespan. And then even with the higher installation costs, concrete repairs tend to be less complex and can be done in-house and cheaper. With asphalt, you need to go to an asphalt contractor, and it's usually more of a complex process. And the reason being with concrete, there are joints that are going to be spaced every 8 to 10 feet. And so if a section of concrete breaks, we can easily remove that section and put in a new section of concrete. Where with asphalt, there isn't that really nice, clean divide that we can kind of go back and make a small repair. That's why it tends to be more complex. Yeah, so as I said, concrete is recommended by staff just for the lifespan, durability, and ease of repair. So if anything happens, it's not going to just fall into disrepair until we can get to it years down the road. And then also the county, Washtenaw County, has been using concrete on a few of their projects in the last few years, most recently at Dexter, Huron. And it's had really positive reception with the public. And I bring that up because when I talked about those concrete joints earlier, a lot of times users don't like them, especially rollerbladers and skateboarders, just from the wheels hitting that joint consistently. Where asphalt doesn't have the joints, it's a smooth, continuous surface until it starts to break down, and then it breaks down rather quickly, so you'll have cracks everywhere. But anyway, we've had really positive reception with other sections of the border-to-border trail. So in terms of the bids, we received 8 bids for the work following our procurement unit, their standard procedures. And you can see here, Mckenzie company, they were the lowest bid, and their bid for concrete was actually lower than what we estimated our asphalt path to be. So we are really pleased to see that, and it fell in line with some of the numbers that the counties received recently as well. Seeing the concrete price drop a little bit and the asphalt price go up has kind of made these more in a discussion of what's viable, what to use when. So we're really pleased with that, and we're hoping work to begin August 1st, and then we could wrap up by the end of October. I know it's going to be rough having users not be able to use this section during the late summer, but it's something that's really needed for this, and we'll have a detour route for pedestrians to be able to get around this section. And then in light of last night's city council meeting, I just wanted to touch base on the responsible contractor policy questionnaire that came along with the bid documents. Mckenzie, they answered all their questions satisfactory to what we were looking for. And one thing especially that I wanted to bring up is the registered apprenticeship program, which was talked about last night in the city council meeting. But every bidder answered that they did not have a registered apprenticeship program. 2 of them, Doan Construction and Best Asphalt, which I have highlighted here, did state that they hired or were linked to a union labor hire policy, but they did not expand onto that. You can see that the costs were significantly higher for those 2 bidders, and so we recommend awarding the contract to Mckenzie and Company. They had really good references, and we've worked with them at the city before. I personally don't have experience, but several in the engineering department did, and so we were really happy to hear that from them. And the last thing I want to touch on is that we are receiving funding from the Washtenaw County Parks and Recreation Commission in the amount of $165,000. And of that, $50,000 is coming from the Huron Waterloo Pathways Initiative. And if you're not familiar with them, they're a nonprofit organization that they help support these border-to-border projects and initiatives around the area. And so they're a very good partner to have, and we've worked with them in the past. And I know at Riverside Park, when we did that 2 years ago, Washtenaw County Parks, they assisted in the funding, and so it'd be a similar situation as that. So with that, if there's any questions that I can answer, I'd be happy to do so, and I can go back and look at any of the slides you have questions on. But yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Adam. Does anybody have any questions? Ruth, go ahead.
Yeah, I have two. One is, I'm just wondering, can equipment come in off of Getty's and down the hill? Is that a possibility? That's one question. And then what do you anticipate the pedestrian and bike detours to look like? Will they be the same?
Yeah, so I'll start with the detour. So what we're planning on doing is so we took down last year offline real quick the bridges to do repairs. And what we did is routed pedestrians down Fuller Court and then Fuller Road, adjoining right kind of north of Mitchell Field. And that seemed to work well. So that's what we were proposing to do for this. In terms of construction access, I guess I'm not entirely sure. I need to go back and look, but I know when we talked to the contractors, I mean, it really seemed like the only viable way is to come in through Gallup Park Road and over the bridge.
Adam, I'll just chime in too.
Yeah.
Ruth, I know the area you're talking about, the Getty's connection, kind of just south of the Gallup Park Vehicle Bridge. So that area, it does cross the railroad, which complicates things because to get big trucks and vehicles through there, you'd have to get railroad approvals, which is time consuming and expensive. You'd have to hire flaggers. So that's why the easiest thing is to stay on just our land, stay away from the railroad, and kind of keep it simple.
Yeah, thanks, Heather.
Yep.
Okay. Other questions for Adam? Mike.
It's just a comment to you youngsters that those paths on the side of the trailer for us old people that like to run there. And they're probably going to be there even if the trail gets wider. So I just want to put that in there for your consideration as you move ahead. Because I always wondered why those trails were on the side too before I hit about 35. And now I am part of the reason why they are still there.
Interesting.
So
I did not realize that.
Yeah, those are, and if you look, you'll see the folks that are on there are oftentimes the old runners. But yeah, those are probably going to stick around even if the path is wider.
Exacerbated somewhat by the concrete path too, right?
I mean, in fact, I think in Chicago along the lakeshore, they've done something where they like sort of expect runners to be in that area. I can't remember exactly what the signage looks like, but I, in any case, would love to see 12-foot wide paths. So I think if people are still running on the side, that's okay.
Yeah, and in this area, it's pretty narrow. We don't have a ton of space, but I think the national trail standards are basically a 10-foot wide, shared use path. And then they typically like to see at least 2 feet cleared on either side as kind of a buffer space. So Mike, to your point, I'd imagine, that kind of shoulder piece on either side will still be used for that purpose by people that choose to walk or run on softer surfaces.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, just to add, I can't believe that the price of concrete came in so low. And I would imagine that they're still going to grind the asphalt surface and then use that as the base to be able to put the concrete on top of.
No, we'll actually be taking the asphalt out of here and putting down a limestone and sand base for the concrete to sit on. So that's the price it came in at. So yeah, I expected it to be a little higher than it was. So that was good news to see it come in. at that. And I think a lot of that has to do, Mckenzie self-performs their own concrete instead of pulling it out. And so I think that's part of the reason that it was lower too.
Okay.
And I've also heard the asphalt prices, they're kind of going up because people don't know the petroleum prices coming up. So that's kind of why those two numbers are starting to level out, I think. But.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
That really was good news based on the materials here.
Yeah.
Other questions or a motion to approve?
Oh, I just had a quick question about what happens to the, so when someone dedicates a park bench and then you take it out, does a new dedication come in, or does it, like, is it, or do you put the same plaque on the new bench?
Yeah, so it's kind of twofold. On this particular situation, we will be putting the memorial plaques back onto the benches as they're being installed. But we are also in process of looking at our gifts and memorials program as a whole. When there are new bench requests or memorials that come in, what we're putting on is a 10-year sunset clause on benches. And a lot of these, we don't necessarily know what dates they came in. And so we're kind of starting fresh on some of those. But that is something that we're looking at, because Gallup Park, we get so many requests for memorial benches and trees and everything. So yes, that is something to take into account here and something we've been thinking about. But as for now, the plaques that are in these areas, we're planning on putting them back.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate the update. I think if there can be maybe a little language based on the discussion at council last night that explains, you know, it wasn't just like, did you have this program or not have this program? There were a couple other factors. So I know it's really last minute. So I just even appreciate the acknowledgement of it at this time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Any other questions for Adam or a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Sorry, I didn't see who spoke.
Oh, that's Patty.
Oh, hi, Patty. Thank you. Motion by Patty. Second by, was that Mike?
Sure.
All right. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you all.
Thank you, park planners.
Moving on to our next agenda item, it's our second public comment period. Every speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. Do we have any callers, Kristen?
No callers.
No callers. All right. Item J, the communications are in your materials. And I think with that, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for attending this meeting. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Good job, Lauren.
Thank you all.
Happy birthday, Patty.
Oh, thank you so much.
Happy birthday, Patty.
Happy birthday,
tomorrow.
Patty.
Thank you. St. Patrick's Day. It's the big day. So thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. See you next time.